Hey everyone, my name is Riley, and this video is a complete Smartsheet tutorial for beginners. I will show you everything that you need to know about Smartsheet, showing you how to create sheets and grids, how to edit the columns and input your data into the rows. I will also take you through all of the views that we can get inside of Smartsheet, including the board view, the Gantt view, the calendar view. On top of this, I will also show you how you can set up automations within Smartsheet, how you can create reports for your data, and how you can create a beautiful dashboard so that you can see all of the data inside of your Smartsheet at a glance. If you do need to rewatch a particular section or skip along to the next section at any point, the video is timestamped down in the description, so you can select the sections of the video that you want to watch. Without further ado, let's jump right into the tutorial. Okay, so right now I am on Smartsheet and I am on a fresh brand new account. Over here on the left hand side, we can see the navigation panel, and this is how we are going to get around the dashboard of Smartsheet. At the top, we have the Home tab, and all this is simply going to do is suggest you different sheets that you have been working on. So usually this is going to show you your recently opened sheets, the sheets that you have opened the most. And essentially all this is an easier way to access your sheets and documents that you have created. In notifications, we will get into this later, but essentially this is going to notify you of any important activity that has happened on your sheet. So whether somebody has completed a task or if somebody has created a new task, this is going to show up under notifications. And to get to notifications, we actually need to set up workflows. So we will come back to this. I will show you how we set up workflows and how we get notifications later in the video. Under Browse, this is the main control panel, and this is where we can create and access all of the sheets that we will be using within Smartsheet. So as this is a main area, we will be using this a lot. We will come back to this in a second when we actually create the sheet. Then we have recently opened, pretty self-explanatory. This is just going to show you all of the sheets and documents that you have recently opened. Then favorites, when we create sheets, we can favorite the sheets that we use the most, and they will show up in this tab. Then we have work apps. So we don't have any work apps. This definitely is not relevant in a beginner's tutorial. Like, we have no need to use work apps, so we will leave that for now. And then the final option right here is just going to be some templates. So this is the template area right here, and we can see these are all of the different templates that we can get on Smartsheet. These are essentially categorized into different complexities. So we can filter these by the top. We can go for low complexity, and this is going to show you the easiest sheets that we can use. Then medium is going to be a little bit trickier. And then high complexity is things like this when I open this up. And these are pretty complex sheets to use. We can also come back out here and search for specific templates for the industry that you are in. So for example, if you are wanting to create something to do with marketing on Smartsheet, then we can select marketing right here. And these are all of the templates that we can get. If you see a template that is relevant to you and you potentially want to use, then we can click into this right here. It's going to bring up a demonstration and show you how the template is going to look. So we can click through, we can see all of the grids that are created, the reports. And then if we actually want to use this pre-built template, we can just go to create from template in this top right corner. And this is going to open up the template that we can use. So it's going to open up right here. Don't worry if you don't understand what is going on, because I'm going to explain everything. But essentially, we can go into the sheets right here. We can remove all of the pre-existing data that is in here and essentially just leave this as a skeleton. And then we can input our own data and use the template. With that being said, Smartsheet is a pretty complex tool to use. There's a lot going on here. So using a template right off the bat, where we automatically have things in here like functions, even if you see a template that you might want to use, what I would recommend is just opening up a blank document like I am about to do and follow me through this video. Follow everything that I do so that you can actually see in front of you, you get used to where everything is, you understand how we can create formulas, you understand how we can input text and how everything kind of binds together to make Smartsheet work. And then once you have followed this tutorial and you understand this, then you can come over to the templates right here and you will actually understand how they work. So with that said, I'm just going to go in and delete these templates that we just used so that I have a blank dashboard once again. And let's now go in and create a blank sheet that we can walk through step by step. So to create a new sheet on Smartsheet, we want to go over to the browse area right here, and this is going to take us over to this screen. Now over here on the left hand side of the browse area, we can essentially see the folders that we have. So right now, this is just organized into a folder of all of the sheets that you have. Then we have workspaces and we have deleted items. Now, deleted items, pretty self-explanatory. This is going to show us everything that we deleted. And I should also mention, if you accidentally delete a sheet, or if you delete a sheet and you want it back at any time, well, if we delete this, it's going to be dropped into deleted items. So what we can do is, let's say I want to bring this sheet back. I can just click on this, go to actions, and then I can undelete. And now if I go back to sheets, that's going to be right there. But once again, I'm just going to delete this because I don't actually need this. And then in deleted items, we can delete everything forever and remove them from this deleted items bin by just confirming the deletion right here in the deletion area. So that is deleted items. Now, workspaces is essentially if you have a team, you can share and work on all of the sheets that you create with team members that you can add to Smartsheet. Whereas Sheet is just going to be if you are using Smartsheet alone. It doesn't really matter what you choose here. The functionality and the way that everything works is the exact same. The only difference between workspaces and having a sheet or a folder is that you can use workspaces with team members. So to actually create a sheet and get started, we can click on create in this top right corner. And then before we jump straight in and actually create a sheet, what I highly recommend doing is creating either a folder if you are using this alone or a workspace. The reason that we do this is that we want to keep everything organized, and it's going to make it much easier when we create reports and dashboards later down the line. So I'm going to create a workspace right here, and then we can name the folder or workspace. So I'm just going to call this GeForce North, and then we can click on OK once that is named. And right here, this is going to be dropped in. So now if we go over to this left-hand menu once again, if you just created a folder, you should see it right here. And then because I created a workspace, I can see the workspace that I just created right here. So make sure that you click on either the folder or the workspace that you just created. Make sure this is highlighted. As you can see right here, we are inside of this workspace. And then what we want to do is create the sheet inside of this folder or workspace. So I'm inside, click on create in this top right corner. And then we want to go here and select the grid. You can see that we do have some other options right here, some other views like project, cards, and task list. And we can basically switch to these views at any time. But the main premise of Smartsheet is going to be using a grid. So that is what we want to select right here. So we can click on grid and then we can name this. And I'm going to call this main task manager. So this sheet that we are about to create is going to be the main data hub. This is going to be where the majority of information is based. And everything else that we create on Smartsheet is going to come out of this. So from here, we can click on OK. And as you can see, that grid is now going to be created. So we can simply go ahead and click into this sheet, and we will be brought over to this blank template. Now, as you can see along the top, we have these sections that are called columns. So we have a primary column all the way through to column 6. And then these numbers that go down the side right here, these are called rows. So we have columns and we have rows. With columns along here at the top, you can essentially choose to have as many or as little columns as you like. The only column that we can't delete is this primary column right here. If I click on these 3 dots and try to delete this, you can see I just can't do it. It's grayed out. But with any of these other columns, I can click in and delete this if I need to. So the very first thing that we are going to do is we are going to go in and name these columns to hold the data that we need it to hold. To do this, we want to double click on the column that we want to change. And in here, you can see we can choose the name and the column type. So once again, with the primary column, this is the only one that we can't change the column type for. And this needs to be a text or a number. But that is absolutely fine because I'm just going to put task name here. This is going to be the primary column and click OK. And as you can see, that column is now going to change. Then we can go along to column 2, click into this. And in here, we can choose the name. So for this, let's call this priority. And then we can go down to the column type and choose from any of these column types. So once again, we have things like text and number, where we just enter text and number. We can choose a date from a calendar. We can choose from a contact list. We can add durations. We can add symbols. And we have a bunch of other options here. So I will cover most of these. I mean, the first one for this is priority. So I want to show the priority of each task using a symbol. So I can click on symbols right here and then choose the symbols that I want to use. And this is pretty fitting right here. A star rating to show how big the priority is. So let's select that and then we can go OK. Keep in mind that this is not exactly how you have to use Smartsheet. Like, you don't have to create this as a task name and this as a priority. I'm just showing you an example table that shows you as much of Smartsheet's features as possible. But for this next one, we can go in and I'm going to change this to be assigned to. So in here, I basically want to choose from my team members who is assigned to each task. So for the column type, I'm going to go down here and choose the contact list. Then I can basically add my team members and just choose from a drop-down menu which of the team members I want to assign to each task. So we can click on OK right here. Then for this next one, I'm going to go for the start date. So the start date for each task. And for this, I'm of course going to go for a date. Then we can click on OK. The next one, we will just keep this nice and simple and we will put due date. And then once again, we can choose the date option. Then the final column that I'm going to add right here is going to be status. And this is how me and my team are going to be able to tell what tasks we haven't started yet, which tasks are in progress, and which tasks are complete. So once again, for this, we can go for symbols. And then I'm just going to choose this. So red would mean not started, yellow would mean in progress, and then green would of course mean complete. So we can select that right there. And then actually, just to show you, I'm going to add one more to this. So right now, I've filled up all of the different columns at the top. To add in a new column, what we can do is click on these three dots by the side of any column to open up this column menu. And then you can see we can insert a column left or we can insert a column right. So if I wanted to add a new column right at the end here, I could go to the end and then choose to insert column on the right hand side, and that would insert right here. But what you could also do is, if I wanted to add a column in the middle of priority and assigned to, then I could just go here and go insert column right. And then I'll delete this, but we can just call this test. Just like this. And that's going to be inserted between these two columns. To delete a column at any time, we can just once again click on these three dots and then delete the column right here. And then the actual column that I'm going to add, if we go here, is going to be category. And then for this, we can choose text and number and add that in right there. If you need to rearrange columns at any time, for example, if I wanted the category to be further over, all I have to do is click on the column, the top of the column. So if you click here and try to drag, it won't work. You need to do it at the top, but we click and drag, and we can drag this to any other position. So I actually want category right at the start. For some reason that didn't move, but I can add that right there. Perfect. So just like that, I now have the headers for each column, and my table is now ready to track all of the information and data that I am going to put in there. To start inputting data, all we need to do is find the column that you want to put data into. So for example, category, double click on the first column, and then we can start entering data into here. So I'm just going to fill this with some example data. We can say content. This is also content, marketing, sales, and marketing once again. Just like that. So we now have the categories outlined. Next, we can go in and start typing out the task name. So each of these different 5 tasks. So once again, we double click in and then we can start typing right here. So we can enter that there. And this is something I also want to show you. So as you can see in the task name, what I wrote there is a little bit long and it kind of cuts out. So all I can see is create 10 Twitter. That's all I can see. To get rid of this and to actually be able to see everything we entered into here, all we need to do is click on the column where this is. So not the bar, but the column at the top. And then what we can do is go up to this control panel at the top and click on this button to wrap. And as you can see, that's going to make all of the text visible. Then I'm going to go down and just say create new YouTube video. For marketing, create new YouTube ads. Then for sales, we can hire a new salesman. And then for marketing, once again, we can go create new Facebook ads. Okay, perfect. So we now have the category and the task name. Once again, just like we could with these columns along the top where we can rearrange them, we can also do this to the rows along the side. So it isn't the worst, but maybe I want to kind of categorize these so I have content, then marketing, then sales. Right now it's kind of messed up. I have sales in between these two marketing columns. So once again, all we do is go to this blue tab. If we hover over the row, we can see this blue tab on the left-hand side. Just click and drag this, and then we can drag this to where we want it to be. Perfect. Then we can go to the next column. This is going to be priority in this case. And if you remember, I set this to symbols. So to actually select the symbol, we just click in, and then we can see this drop-down arrow in the top right of this box. So we can click down, and we can now select the priority. So I'm going to set this to priority 3, create a new YouTube video to priority, let's say 3, create new YouTube ads, we will set to priority 5, same with Facebook ads, priority 5, and then hire a new salesman, we will go for priority 4. Next is the assigned to column, and this is where we can go ahead and we can actually add team members to Smartsheet. Now, if you are using Smartsheet solo and you don't have a team, then you can use the timestamps in the description of this video to scroll along to the next section. However, if you do want to add team members, then before we go in here and actually add these assigned to, we actually want to add the team members to Smartsheet. So to do this, what we are going to do is we want to save the sheet first of all. So if you've made any changes, just save this. Then we can go over to this left-hand panel and browse. From here, we want to go down to this profile icon or the little person icon in this bottom left corner. Click on this and then go to user management right here. And then in the user management, this is where we can add users. So we want to go to add user right here at the top. And we just need to create a company name. So I'll just call this GeForce North and hit enter. And in here, we can now start adding users. So all we need to do is enter in the person's email address and their first and last name. So I will add 2 users right here. We'll go for this one. And this person is called James Smith. And then down here at the bottom, we can choose this user's permissions. So right now, with the default permissions, this person can access resource views, and they can also create and own sheets. For most people you add, this is all you are going to need. But if you want people to be able to manage users and accounts, essentially add people, delete people, then you can add them as a system admin. And then if you also want them to be able to create and edit groups, you can add them as a group admin. I'm just going to leave this on default permissions and click OK. And then what this is going to do is this is going to send an invitation to the person that you just invited as an email. So I will show you how this looks on your team members end in a second and how the invite looks. But I'm just going to add one more user. So we can add that user right there. Once again, default permissions and click on OK. And as you can see, both of these users are now invited. On your team members end, they will receive an email that looks like this. So they were invited and they will receive this email that says that you invited them to collaborate on a Smartsheet. So all they have to do is click on accept and they will be added into your Smartsheet account. So once you have invited these team members and they have all accepted, what we can then do is we can back out. And if we now click back into the sheet that we were working on, if I go to the assigned tab or basically any tab that you have set to contact list, what we can do is we want to click back into the column at the top, because if we try this down here, it's not going to give us the options. We need to actually add them into this column first. But if we double click the column, we can then go to add contacts right here, and we can go ahead and add these in. So if I click on add contacts, you can see they are going to pop up. So I'm just going to add everybody in right here, including myself, because I can also be assigned to tasks. Click on OK, and they are now added. So in my assigned to category, I can now go down, click on this drop down arrow, and I can choose the person that I want to assign to this task. So all I would do is go through and select the person who is assigned to each task. So we can just go in here and choose from all of these different users that we have added. And just like that, all of our tasks are now assigned. We can then go, so these two are calendar features. So we want to set a start date right here. I'm just going to set all of the start dates to today. And this is a point as well. So instead of clicking through and having to select the date for everyone, if everything in this column is going to be the same, then what we can do is just select the first one right here. And then once that is selected, you see this tiny little dot in the bottom corner. Well, what we can actually do is click on this and drag this down. So we click and drag, and it's going to autofill the rest as the exact same. Then we can go through and choose the due date right here. So once again, let's just set all of these to Friday. Perfect. And then the last column is just going to be a status. So we can click on the drop down arrow and we can choose the progress of these, whether these are not started, in progress, or complete. So let's say this is in progress. This is in progress. We haven't started this. And then we completed this, and this is in progress. Perfect. We now have these all set up. So that is how we can set up our grid and actually start inputting data. What you can also do, and I don't want to spend too long on this because it's not super important, like I very rarely use these features, but we do have this control bar at the top. So essentially what we can do is we can choose the font that we want to use. So I can click on the grid that I want to change and then choose the font right here. As you can see, that font is going to change. If I click and drag and select multiple of these cells, then what I can do is change multiple of them at the same time. So let's say we want to change all of these. I can click and drag all of these, and now all of these are going to change as I change the font right here. To undo a change, you can either go Ctrl-Z on your keyboard if you are on PC, or Command-Z if you are on Mac. Or alternatively, we just click this undo button in this top left corner. We can also change things like the font size right here. If we, wow, that was terrible. If we want to make this bigger, that was way too big. Just like that. Or we can go ahead and bold, italicize, and underline. So as you can see, all of those are now in effect. And we can see those are on because we have these blue boxes around the outside. So let's say I just want to keep this as bold, but not italicized and underlined. We have that right there. We can also strike through. So as you can see, all of the text is now stricken through. We can add a color behind. So the actual cell color we can change. So what we could do if you wanted to like change the color of your chart is we could add that right there and change like the cell background to, let's say, black. And let's change the text color to white. And then we can leave this as white. Then we could change, I guess, this to black once again. You get the idea. We can basically change the cell color and the font color by using these two options. I just want to go ahead and unbold this as well. Okay, perfect. That looks okay. Then this option right here is basically going to align the cell content. So what we can do if I select all of these is we can go to the alignment and we can choose how this is aligned. So by default, these are aligned to the left, but we can align the text in the middle of the box. We can align it to the right, and it really just depends on what you are doing, but I always leave this as the left. We already covered the wrap. This is basically how we can make text fully visible. And if you want to remove this at any time, then we can just click on unwrap and you can see it's going to cover up the text. But let's have this so we can see it. With this eraser icon, we can clear formats. So it essentially means any changes we make up here, that's going to delete instantly. So if I make like this black and then I change this text color to red and we also make this like indented, then we can essentially just select everything, click on this eraser icon, and it's going to delete all of the formats. So that's cool. The only thing I want to change is bringing this back. We then have Format Painter, which essentially means that it just makes it easier to format other cells in the same way. So if I have this selected, I can basically choose a format, double click on that cell, and then copy it over here. We then have conditional formatting. Now, these are essentially rules, and we will talk more about rules and conditional formatting and formulas later. That's a little bit more complex, so we'll leave that for now. Then highlight changes. We can essentially highlight all of the changes that we have made in the past amount of time. So this is obviously not going to be very handy for something like this because I just created this sheet and it's very small. But if you have hundreds and hundreds of these rows, then what we can do is we can come in here and say, I want to highlight all of the changes that I have made in the past hour. Then we can turn this on and it's going to highlight all of the changes to the cells that you have made in the past hour or however long you set this to. Let's just turn this off for now. Then these options is just we can add cell links right here. We can add images. If we want to add an image in for whatever reason, we can just go ahead and add that in right there. I'm just going to delete this. Then we can insert rows. So if I want to, I'll do it here because you will actually be able to see it. We can insert a row right there. Pretty nice. And then the final option, we have already spoken about this, is we can just insert a column, choose the column type and add this at the top. Now that you understand how we can enter and format the data that we input, What we can also do is we can go up to here, and you can see by default, this is going to be set to the grid view because we just created a grid. But what we can also do is we can go up here and we can choose between any of these other views. So we can switch this over to a timeline view right here. And this is going to show us a timeline based by default throughout all of these different months. Now, because my sheet specifically just focused on, well, essentially the rest of this month, what I might want to do is narrow this down and go to days. In here, I can basically see a timeline of when all of my tasks started and when they end. And just as an example, let's go back to the grid, and I will actually set the due date for just this one right here to be set to the 24th. Now, if I go back to the timeline right here, you can see that this is how it's going to look. So we can see the due date is the 24th for this one, and then the 26th for all of these. So we can essentially zoom in and out of this timeline and see when everything is due. And this is very, very helpful for especially when you have a much bigger sheet. We can also access the board view right here. And I really, really like this. This is something that I do use on my personal Smartsheet. Because what we can do, the way that this is laid out right now, is each board is basically showing us what tasks are assigned to each person. So this could be helpful if that's the way we want to look at this. But what I like to do is set this to status. And now we can see where all of the different tasks are in relation to the status. So I can see at a glance right here, I have one task that isn't started, 3 tasks that are in progress, and then 1 that is complete. And what I can actually do is if I want to drag one of these over to green, for example, I can just do that right there. And instantly that moves from in progress to complete. And if I go back over to the grid view, you can see that is automatically going to be updated right here. But for the rest of the board, we can essentially choose the view and what we want these top items to be. So we can choose this by priority and see the priority of each task. We can do assigned to, which is the default. And then we can also go to status right here. We then also have a Gantt chart. So this is going to give us a Gantt chart inside of the grid that we already have. So you may actually prefer this grid to use just day to day rather than the default grid. But in the Gantt view, it's basically going to show us kind of like a miniature calendar layout of when everything is due. So we can basically see that this is the Gantt chart. And we can see all of the projects that we have. So we have each task right here, and then we can see the start date, and we can also see the due date, as well as this dotted line right here is the current date. Another view that we have is the card view, and this is very similar to the board view. So once again, we can choose how this is viewed and these top categories assigned by, status, or priority. And once again, we can move these around into these different sections. And then finally, the final view that we have is the calendar view right here. We have some settings to display at first. So we can choose if we want to show the dates on the calendar as the start date for each event or the due date. So I want to go for due date, or we can choose both. So if I go both start and due date and look at this, it's going to kind of give us, once again, like this bar graph where it shows us the start date going to the due date. We can change this in the settings though. So for example, if I only want to see the due date for each of these tasks, we can lay that up right there. And then we can see these 4 are due on Friday. This one is due on Wednesday. And then we can scroll through the calendar as much as we like, or we can also zoom in and out of the calendar just like this. So those are all of the views that we can get access to on Smartsheet. I'll just go back to the grid view right here. And then up here at the top, we have file, automation, forms, and connections. Now, under File, we can create a brand new sheet. We can import something from like Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Project, Google Sheets. If you have any sheets already created, then we can instantly import all of the data into Smartsheet at just a click right here. We can also open any other sheets that we have if we want to bounce over to a new document. We can save as a template, rename, share, send as attachment, basically all of the default settings that you get with your standard software. And then automation right here. This is where we can start creating automation workflows. So by default, we already have one right here. And I'm just going to go in and delete this as we don't need this. So we just go delete. Okay. And then we can create a brand new one. So we go automation, and then we can either create from template or create from scratch. Creating from template is much simpler. This is the one that I recommend. And these are the automations that we can get. So we can do things like remind somebody on a specific date. We can alert somebody when a specific criteria is changed. So what I might want to do is alert myself when somebody updates a status right here. So if something moves from being in progress to complete, I want to know about that. I want to be alerted. And if you remember earlier in the video when I talked about notifications, this is where these kind of come together. So we can go to automation and then create a new workflow from template. So let's alert somebody when a specific criteria is met, and then we can use this template, and then we can set this up right here. So let's just call this status update trigger, just like that. And then for the trigger, we want to set this to status first of all. So we go down to status, and then we can set this to, I want this to any value. So anytime the status changes, I want to be updated. Then we can go down to alert somebody and say, who is this going to alert? And then I want to alert myself. So I'm just going to select my email right here. We can also choose to customize the message if we want to and type something out, but I'm going to leave this blank, and then we can click on save. Just like that, we can see this is now active. So if I go in and change one of these statuses right here to green, as you can see, we now get a notification in this top left corner. And if I click on this, we can see changes are created right there. This changed to a green status, and that's going to notify me right there. But we can do this for so many different things. We can go in. So we have, like, as I say, remind somebody on a specific date, alert somebody when anything changes, alert somebody when a row is deleted. And these are just the templates. If you do want to go deeper with this, we can go create from scratch, and then you can choose your own trigger right here and set this up. And that is how we can set up workflows and automations right there. So that is how we can set up and create a sheet inside of Smartsheet. What we also might want to do, and I will show you this in templates to show you how this is going to look. If I just choose this one right here, we can also set up things like reports. So as you can see, we have a report right here, and this is basically going to filter through everything. And this report is at risk tasks only. So we can see at risk, all of these tasks are at risk in this example. And we can essentially create reports so that we can see important information at a glance rather than having to scroll through the entire sheet. On top of this, we can also set up dashboards that look like this. So you can basically compact all of your data into a beautiful area, showing you things like tasks by status. So in this example, 24 tasks are not started, 6 are in progress. Then we have 1 complete, 1 cancelled, and 1 on hold. We can see what percentage of the tasks are complete, at-risk tasks, and we can basically set up and customize our dashboard in any way that we want. But let's start out by creating a simple report, just like this, so that we can narrow the information down and see what we need to at a glance. So I'm just going to go back to the sheet that I set up earlier, and we will see what information that we can track. So I want to track priority, and I only want to see the tasks that are at a high priority. So the way that we do this is by creating a report. We can go back to the browse area and make sure we are in the correct workspace or folder that we created. Then we want to go to create in this top right corner. And from here, we can create a report. So we can click on report, and I'm going to call this high priority tasks, as that is what we are going to be tracking. And then we can set this to row report. Then we can click on OK and click into this report. So this icon is a sheet and this is report. So we can click in, and in here, we can now go ahead and build out the report. So we can click on get started. And in here, we now need to choose the main sheet that we are going to be using to pull this data from. So we, of course, want to go for the main task manager that we just created and go to next. And now we want to choose what columns we show. So, of course, this is going to be priority, as we are going to be tracking a high priority. So we can see the primary column. This is going to be there by default, and this is the task name. And now we can see the priority. In here, I also want to see who these tasks are assigned to. And I also want to see the status of these tasks, as well as the due date. So now all of this information is on this sheet. We can then click on next. And this is the important part, because this is where we can filter, and this is where we can specifically search for only high priority tasks. So we would go to search field right here. And of course, we want to set this to priority. And we are only going to be looking for high priority tasks. So priority right here, if I just click in and show you, the way that we will find this is by typing in the number of stars. So this is 5, this is 3. Let's go back to filter, and priority is equal to, and we want to set this to 5 because we're only looking for high priority. Click on OK. And just like that, this is now going to filter the sheet down and show us only the high priority tasks. Perfect. Let's create another one, and I actually want to filter this by status and see all of the current tasks that are in progress. So once again, we go over to browse, create, and create a report. And then let's call this in progress tasks. Once again, we can click on OK. And then we want to click into in progress task. And then we can choose the data sheet that we will be pulling data from once again. So main task manager. Then in here, we once again want to deselect this. And this time we are going to look for the status first of all. Then we can go for the priority, due date, and also assigned to. Perfect. We can then click on next. And then in filter criteria, we are going to be looking for the status. So we set this to status right here. Then we can choose is equal to. And then we want to go for the color of this. So the way that we can check these icons is the color. So we'll go yellow and apply. And if you don't know what to type into this filter section, because you have like an icon, for example, or these stars, we just double click on this and it will tell you what you need to type in. So we could type in 4 for 4 stars or yellow for the status. Perfect. So those are reports. And I can now see, because I created this workspace earlier, we have this dashboard on the left-hand side that easily allows me to switch between the main task manager, the in-progress task report, and the high priority task report, so I can easily see these at a glance. That is why it was so important, and I made sure that you created either a workspace or a folder at the start, because if we do, then we get access to this beautiful menu down the left-hand side. Now, the final thing that we are going to be creating inside of Smartsheet is one of these dashboards right here to make our data look nice and beautiful and allow us to easily access the important data at a glance. So to do this, we will go back to the browser area where we can see everything we have created so far. And this time, when we are creating something new, instead of going for a grid or a report, this time we want to go for a dashboard. So we can click into dashboard right here, and I will just call this dashboard. And then click on OK. And if I click into this, you will see the layout is very, very different. So the first thing that we need to do is add in a widget. And this is basically drag and drop. So the first thing that I like to add into here is a title. So we can go to the title and we can click and drag this in. And then click on this right here. And I'm just going to title this GeForce North Report. Just like that. And then we can drag this wherever we want to on this dashboard. I'm going to have this right at the top right here. And then just for looks, this definitely is not something you have to do, but I do like to add an image and add a logo in here because it just adds an extra level of professionalism. So we now have that logo in. We can make this a little bit smaller and put this in the top corner, and perfect. Now we can go ahead and actually start building out this report. So we go up here and we can add a widget, and then we can choose from any of these options. Now, this is super important, and this is where a lot of people kind of get confused when it comes to dashboards. Because if we just go in and add a chart, it would be so easy if we could just add data and add from the main sheet, add this in just like that, but we can't. It's actually a little bit trickier than that. So if I just delete this, we want to save this with just the title and the logo up here. Because what we need to do is we need to add some functions into here. So we need to create a new grid in order to set these functions up. And it's completely up to you where you put this, but I prefer to actually create it outside of this folder. So it's kind of hidden. Because if I'm clicking in, I don't want to be seeing my functions grid and accidentally clicking into this in this area. And we can still use this if it's outside of this folder. So what I like to do is go into Sheet. So it's not in this folder. We are in the Sheet area. And we can go create and create a new grid. Now, before I create that, let's actually figure out what we want to track on this dashboard. So on this dashboard, I want to track with a beautiful chart the progress of all of the tasks. So which tasks are complete, which tasks are in progress, and which tasks are to do. So once again, let's go back out and into Sheets, create new, and we will create a new grid. I'm going to call this Progress Tracker Formula. If this is confusing you, then don't worry, it will all kind of come full circle and it will all make sense. But we do want to go ahead and create a new sheet. Then in here, in the new grid, the formula grid that we have, we want to write out exactly what we want to track. So the thing that I want to track is the status. So I'm going to call this to do, in progress, and then complete. And I want to track how many things in my main sheet are in to do, how many are in progress, and how many are complete. So for this, we need to use formulas. There is a lot of different formulas and functions that we can get on Smartsheet. As you can see right here, there's probably hundreds of these. And if you do want to see a more in-depth breakdown of formulas and how we can create dashboards, I'm going to create an entire video dedicated to dashboards after this. So I will leave that in the description. But what we are tracking here is pretty simple actually. So we just click into column 2 and go equals count if. And then in here, we want to reference another sheet. We want to reference the main data sheet that we created. So we can go reference another sheet, then select the sheet that we want to use. And then all we are going to do is select the boxes for status, because this is what I want to track. I don't want to track any of this. I just want to track the status that each task is at. That's a mistake that I almost made right there. So instead of selecting just the status, because what this is going to do, if you just select this, is it's only going to track these cells. So if we add anything else in, it's not automatically going to track it. So the column that you want to select, we want to select at the top, and then that's going to select all of the changes that we make to this column in the future as well. So that is the range. Then I can type in comma, and this is the criteria that I need. So to do is going to be red. So I'm going to type in red right here, red, enter. And what has gone wrong right here? I forgot to put speech marks. We need to put speech marks around either side, enter. And then we can see that we only have one of these that is red, so only one of these is to do. Then what I'm going to do is just go back to the formula right here and copy and paste this. Then we can change this to yellow, enter. We have one in yellow. Then we go back, paste this in, and we can say green, enter. And 3 of these are green. So just like that, I can now see, because I've set up these formulas, and I'll actually prove this to you by going to the sheet itself so that you can see these actually line up. I'll go in here, and we can see we have 3 green, 1 red, and 1 yellow. So 3 complete, 1 in progress, and 1 to do. Perfect. So now to actually add these to the dashboard, what we are going to do is go back, and of course we need to save this. Then we can go to the dashboard right here, go to edit, and then we can add in a new widget. And I want to add in a chart to track this. So I'm going to click on the chart and add this in. Then we can add data on this right-hand side. And then we can see over here, I have progress tracker formula. This is the one that I just created specifically to track this progress. Then all I'm going to do from here is highlight the information that I have inside of here, click on OK. And just like that, we now have this on the dashboard. So we can see I have 60% of my tasks complete, 20% in progress, and 20% to do. We can then edit this in some different ways. So we can choose the chart type if we want to go for a bar chart right here, if we want to go for a pie chart, if we want to go for a donut chart. I'm actually going to stick with pie chart right there. We can then go to title and change the title at the top. So instead of progress tracker formula, I'm going to change this to task progress, just like that. We can then change the font, the size, all of that stuff right there. And then if we want to go down and change the colors, we can do that as well. But I'm just going to leave these as they are, as that's not really important. We can then click on save. And just like that, this task progress is now added to this dashboard. What this is also going to do, because we set up a formula, is if I go back over to the main chart right here and I add something else in, it's automatically going to update on the dashboard. That is why it's so important to set up formulas. So just as an example, if I go for sales once again, and I say this is a sales call with Tony, we fill in the rest of this information and say this call is next Monday, and we will change this to red to do. If I now go ahead and save this sheet right here, and then we go back, watch what happens when I refresh. So I just set this to do. If I refresh this, just like that, you can see this is automatically going to be updated, and it takes into account what I just changed right there, what I added in, and it's going to give me new numbers based on that. We could also take this a step further, and if I just go back to the formula sheet, in column 3, we can work this out as a percentage, and I'll show you why this is handy. But to do this, all we would do is basically click in, and then we can go equals sum. And then in here, we can go for, we actually want to go for a total here. I forgot about that. So we want to go for total and figure this out. And then go equals sum, then brackets, all of this, brackets, enter. And then we can see the total sum is 6. So now to get a percentage, we can go equals sum. And then we can say this divided by this, enter. Then we can say, then we do the same thing. So equals sum. And we go this divided by this, enter. Equals sum. This divided by this, enter. And now we have all of these as decimals. But if we highlight these and then say as a percentage, we now get a percentage right here. So the reason that we set this up is if we save this right now, we can go back to the dashboard, go to edit once again, and in here we can now add like a metric if we want to. So I can add this in, add data, and then add this from the tracker formula. And then I want to go for how many I have completed. So I can select this and click OK. And then we can see this is going to show up as 50%. So I'm going to click in and change this to project completed, just like that. And then we can stack this. And then for the title, we will say progress completion tracker. And then maybe we want to make this a little bit bigger. So we can click in and then choose the font size, set this to the maximum actually, and then set this to the maximum as well. And then we can see that we now have 50% of the projects completed. And that is how we can set the dashboard up right there. So with that in mind, we basically know exactly how to use Smartsheet. We have the notifications that we set up with automations right there. We have the browse where we can browse through all of the files and workspaces and create new ones and access ones we have already created. Recently opened is going to show us all of these documents. Favorites, so very easy to favorite something. We just go to the sheet right here. So this is the progress tracker formula. And if I want to favorite this, I just click on this star icon. Now if I refresh and go back to favorites, you can see that's going to show up right there. Perfect. You now know how to create a grid, how to create reports, and how we can create dashboards inside of Smartsheet. So that is my complete Smartsheet tutorial. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to smash that like button and tap that subscribe button. And until next time, take it easy.